The morning my father drove away, the rising sun painted our frosty yard gold while a lonely Siberian Husky watched from the porch. His thick black and white coat shimmered like fresh ink on snow, and his icy blue eyes followed the dust cloud behind Dad's truck. Mom pressed the house key into my trembling palm and whispered that the dog was mine now, as if handing me a secret map. I had never even owned a hamster, yet Blizzard, which was scribbled on the tag, leaned in and licked the fear from my knuckles. The air smelled of pine and gasoline, a mix of leaving and staying, while Blizzard's tail swept slow arcs across the wooden step. I knelt to meet his stare and felt warmth spread through the chilly dawn, the way campfires chase shadows from a forest trail. Birds chattered overhead, but the husky stayed silent, waiting for me to speak first, like a friend who lets you choose the game. I whispered that we would figure things out together, and his perked ears twitched as though he understood every shaky word. Inside, the hallway echoed with emptiness. Blizzard's padded paws clicked behind me, turning the silence into small, hopeful drums. I poured water into an old metal bowl, and he drank in loud, grateful gulps that sounded like promises too big for words. When I offered half a peanut butter sandwich, he accepted it gently, showing manners Dad wished I had at that age. My backpack rested by the door because school waited, but Blizzard nudged it aside, reminding me some lessons start at home. Snowflakes drifted through the open doorway and melted on his fur, dotting him with tiny silver stars that faded one by one. Mom watched from the kitchen, eyes red-rimmed, yet Blizzard's calm presence softened her shoulders like a warm winter scarf. We stepped outside, and the husky paced beside me, matching my unsure steps as perfectly as partners in a slow, careful dance. The road toward the bus stop felt less lonely with his shadow stretched next to mine, twin paths on fresh, untouched snow. A neighbor waved, asking whose beautiful dog he was, and my heart skipped because the answer for the first time was mine. Blizzard sniffed the morning air, then pressed his head against my knee, appointing himself guardian of a life still unfolding. As the bus roared closer, he sat at the gate, blue eyes shining like twin lanterns, promising to wait until I returned. In that frozen moment, I realized Dad's departure had delivered an unexpected gift, one that might just save us all. Blizzard met me after school, bounding through powdery snow like a silver comet across the street, paws tossing glittering crystals. My classmates, still buzzing from algebra, froze when his icy eyes scanned them with gentle curiosity as soft flakes drifted around us. Leah, who rarely spoke, stroked his velvet ruff, and Blizzard's slow wag melted her shy smile in a heartbeat. Felix tossed a snowball. The dog vaulted, snapped the puff midair, and landed with a victorious shake that drew cheers. Laughter leapt down the block, echoing off mailboxes and bare maples, turning our walk home into a small parade nobody planned. Blizzard trotted ahead, pausing at each yard as if inviting new friends to join our caravan of crunching boots and bright scarves. Mrs. Patel peeked out and Blizzard bowed. She giggled and tossed him the heel of her warm bread stick, amazed by his manners. His wordless joy rebuilt bridges stronger than any apology Dad might mail from some distant motel off the highway. At our driveway, the crowd thinned, but every goodbye glowed brighter than the brooding clouds over the hills. Inside, Mom noticed my grin. Blizzard underlined it by dropping his snow-dusted leash neatly at her feet and thumping the rug. She followed us to the living room where late suns stretched across the floor like quiet spotlights, lighting floating dust motes. Blizzard nosed a dusty guitar case silent since Dad left, and Mom traced its brass latches before lifting the lid with a shaky breath. She strummed one timid chord, and the husky tilted his head, ears perked, eyes shining with clear approval that drew a small laugh. Music swirled through the house like soup steam, filling cracks in walls and hearts that had felt hollow for months. I grabbed Blizzard's paws and danced. Our clumsy steps matched Mom's melody, which now grew steadier and bright. Soon her voice joined the chords, humming the lullaby she once used during thunder when I was sure storms would swallow the world. Blizzard sprawled at her feet, eyes half closed, accepting each note as proof that even cracked homes can heal. When the last chord faded, Mom whispered that maybe the husky had arrived for reasons bigger than us, written in paw prints. I hugged her, feeling Blizzard press between our ankles, closing a three-being circle bright with promise. That night, as snow tapped the windows, I drifted off to Mom's humming and Blizzard's breathing, sure a brave new chapter had begun. Winter thundered into town with sleet that rattled the gutters like marbles, blanketing our street under an icy, blinding sheet. School closed, so Mom took her nurse's bag to the clinic downtown, squeezing my shoulder and trusting Blizzard to keep me company. By noon, snowdrifts stacked taller than a mailbox, yet the husky pranced through them, carving tunnels that sparkled like cave walls. A distant cry floated across the hush. Blizzard's ears flicked forward, and he bolted before I could call him back. I plunged after him, legs sinking up to my knees, while my breath puffed fast clouds that vanished in the whipping wind. Behind the silent bus stop, we found Mr. Chen sprawled under a broken branch, his coat stiff with ice and his glasses fogged white. Blizzard pressed against him like a furry furnace, sharing heat while I heaved the branch away and checked for any nasty cuts. Mr. Chen's voice trembled, but he managed a weak smile when Blizzard licked his frosted cheek, tail sweeping snow in wide arcs. I slipped my scarf around his shoulders, then clipped a spare leash to Blizzard's harness, turning my pet into a living sled dog. Step by step, the husky leaned forward, hauling Mr. Chen while I steadied his arm, counting each crunching stride. Neighbors peeked through curtains, stunned to see a boy and dog towing an elder, then rushed out with blankets and cocoa. The rescue line grew, and Blizzard stayed in front, muscles bunching like springs whenever the sled shoes lost grip. At our porch, someone dialed emergency services, and the siren wailed through the storm, guiding paramedics to our glowing porch light. They loaded Mr. Chen gently, thanking Blizzard with an admiration badge sticker that he wore proudly on his snowy forehead. When the ambulance roared away, the crowd burst into applause that echoed off frozen roofs like fireworks on New Year's Eve. Mom returned then, eyes wide, and hugged us both so hard the husky squeaked, though he wagged anyway. Reporters arrived by dinnertime, cameras flashing, but Blizzard ignored the fuss and sniffed the microphone. The local news anchor called him a hero, and I realized bravery sometimes wears fur and bright blue eyes instead of shiny armor. That night, as wind howled outside, Blizzard slept by the fireplace, his soft snores mingling with crackling logs in cozy harmony. I pressed my palm against his steady heartbeat, promising silently that I would follow his courage wherever tomorrow's trails led. Spring sunshine melted the last piles of snow and turned the sidewalks into small, shiny rivers. Blizzard splashed through every puddle, sending cold drops up my jeans and making me laugh out loud. Our gym teacher, Coach Ramirez, noticed the Huskies' energy and invited us to try the new dog running club. We met before sunrise behind the stadium, where Blizzard wore a light harness clipped to a stretchy bungee line. When the whistle blew, he pulled forward, and I ran behind him, feeling like I had rockets on my shoes. My legs soon learned to match his smooth rhythm, just as my heart had learned his steady trust. Coach taught 4 trail words: hike to go, G for right, haw for left, and whoa to stop. Blizzard mastered them in 3 laps, ears flicking back each time he heard a command. Some kids wrestled with tangled leashes, but Blizzard adjusted speed perfectly, teaching me true teamwork. Every week we wrote faster times in Dad's old notebook, filling empty pages with bright new numbers. Mom taped each race ribbon on the fridge until the door looked like a rainbow of proud colors. Felix from art class joined with his rescued beagle, turning practice sessions into mini celebrations of cheers and high fives. At the regional race, the sky matched Blizzard's icy eyes, and crowds clapped mittened hands along the trail. Halfway through, a corgi slipped its harness. Blizzard slowed on his own so the little dog's team could get back on track. We finished without a medal but earned the loudest cheers of the day, louder than any trophy shine. Coach said kindness on the course mattered more than gold on a ribbon, and I knew he was right. Blizzard sneezed on my silver medal, sending tiny water drops everywhere and making everyone laugh. That night, the local news showed our race, and somewhere far away, Dad must have seen the clip. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. Dad apologized for leaving and asked if he could visit us soon. Blizzard wagged once, telling me without words that forgiveness is a journey best traveled together. Dad arrived one bright Saturday, carrying a suitcase and wearing a hopeful smile that trembled like new leaves. Blizzard trotted to the gate, sniffed Dad's shoes, then wagged twice as if turning a key that unlocked the front yard's welcome. I stood frozen by the mailbox, unsure if my feet wanted to sprint forward or stay glued to the icy gravel forever. Mom stepped onto the porch, holding 3 steaming cocoa mugs that sent sweet fog swirling between old hurts and fresh chances. We sat at the kitchen table, where an empty chair had waited like a question mark since Dad vanished. Blizzard lay between our sneakers, his tail sweeping gentle half-moons that brushed against ankles and quietly erased awkward gaps. Dad cleared his throat, thanked the husky first for guarding us, and promised to relearn how to stay instead of run when life grew hard. Mom listened, eyes shining yet steady, then covered his hand with hers like sunrise soaking into cold river stones after a long frost. I slid the race notebook across the table. Dad opened it and traced the inked times, smiling wider at each page of stubborn courage. He asked if he could help train us for the charity run, and Blizzard barked once, a crisp yes louder than any words our house had heard. That afternoon we walked to the park, Dad timing sprints while snowmelt trickled beside muddy paths like tiny applause. During breaks, he tossed sticks for Blizzard, laughing when the Husky chose only the biggest ones, determined to carry entire logs. Back home, Dad fixed the squeaky door hinge, oiling it until the sharp cry of leaving turned into a warm whisper that sang of staying. Mom cooked vegetable stew, and Dad set extra carrots aside for Blizzard, whose polite patience earned each orange coin like treasure. After dinner, we circled the block together, footsteps crunching in rhythm while porch lights flicked on like quiet, cheering crowds. Neighbors waved, surprised to see our family whole again, and Blizzard introduced Dad by nudging him toward every outstretched hand. Inside, Dad unpacked his suitcase and placed framed photos he had carried to remember us. He set them on the mantel beside Blizzard's hero tag, forming a new timeline where goodbye was replaced by bright welcome. Before bed, Dad read my essay aloud, voice cracking on lines about courage with fur, and promised to attend every race yet to come. As night settled, Blizzard curled between my door and the hall, guarding dreams that now reached farther than fear ever could. Years slipped by, and Blizzard's snow-white muzzle gradually frosted with gray, while I shot up in height and filled notebooks with impossible dreams. In 7th grade, I penned an essay called "The Husky Who Healed Our Home," and Blizzard sat beside the desk, tail thumping like a drum roll each time I typed his name. The essay won first prize at the district level, earning us a spot at the state fair, so Blizzard donned a bright blue bandana and trotted proudly onto the stage. When the announcer asked how a dog could change a life, I said that kindness on 4 paws is louder than any angry shout and steadier than fear. Cameras flashed as Blizzard tilted his head in puzzled delight, and the audience's laughter felt like friendly rain washing away the last bits of old hurt. High school arrived with harder homework, but Blizzard kept me disciplined, nudging my elbow if I reached for my phone instead of my flashcards. After dinner, Dad timed our late evening runs. Blizzard tugged the leash just enough to make me push past fatigue, while Mom cheered from the porch swing. On weekends, we volunteered at the animal shelter, where frightened pups calmed to instant blizzards stretched beside their kennels, tails sweeping slow semicircles of peace. The director called him a 4-legged counselor and printed posters of us under the heading Team Hope, which fluttered beside every cage like tiny flags of light. College recruiters noticed the article about Blizzard's storm rescue and the fair speech, and suddenly letters arrived promising scholarships in animal medicine. One crisp autumn afternoon, Dad fastened a miniature mortarboard to Blizzard's collar so he could graduate with me during the outdoor ceremony. On stage, the principal shook my hand, then patted Blizzard's head, telling the crowd that heroes sometimes wear fur instead of capes, and cheers rolled like distant thunder. Afterward, we picnicked under the old maple, now massive and shade-rich, where Blizzard chased drifting leaves until he flopped down, tongue lolling in satisfied joy. Later that year, I noticed his gait slowing, so we shortened routes and took more riverside walks, trading speed for shared sunsets painted in soft pastels. One evening, as golden light pooled over the grass, Blizzard paused, looked into my eyes, and I felt a quiet farewell settle like falling petals. He lay beneath the maple's broad arms, breathed a peaceful sigh, and drifted away while Dad's steady hand rested on my shoulder, anchoring me through the ache. We buried him right there, planting forget-nots around a smooth stone etched with the words "Guide, Guardian, Friend," and the blooms danced in every breeze. Though the yard felt strangely still, I sensed Blizzard's spirit whenever birds gathered or when the wind rustled leaves like gentle applause. Before leaving for veterinary school, I touched the flowers and promised aloud that I would help animals the way Blizzard helped people find their best selves. As I walked down the driveway, suitcase rolling behind, a sudden warm gust brushed my leg, and I smiled, certain Blizzard was trotting beside me into every tomorrow. My first year of veterinary school overflowed with long lectures and tough exams, yet every fact about bones or hearts reminded me of Blizzard's steady courage. When classes ended at sunset, I walked alone beside the city river, picturing his blue eyes guiding my steps across the gray cement path. I joined the campus animal clinic and soothed nervous dogs by telling stories of the husky who once saved a freezing neighbor. Each wagging tail felt like a tiny thank you note sent from Blizzard through time and space. Letters from home carried photos of the forget-nots blooming wild around his stone, petals bright as memories that would never fade. Dad mailed clippings of my old race times, adding new stopwatch notes where he now coached local kids and their rescue pets. Mom wrote that she still strummed the guitar at dusk, and neighborhood children sang while the flowers swayed like a soft choir. On weekends, I volunteered at adoption events, slipping Blizzard's hero tag into my pocket for luck before greeting hopeful families. Whenever a shy child met a shelter puppy, I knelt and shared how one brave husky once helped me find my own voice. Seeing the child's grin bloom felt like reliving the first day Blizzard nudged my trembling hand on that frosty porch. Professors noticed my calm touch with anxious animals and asked me to tutor classmates in gentle handling skills. I taught them the 4 trail words, hike, jeet, whoa, because clear, kind language works on people as well as pets. One spring morning, the dean called me to her office and offered a scholarship named after Blizzard, funded by grateful townsfolk back home. Tears blurred my view as I accepted, certain the Husky's legacy now stretched farther than either of us could have chased on foot. I celebrated by planting a seedling maple in the campus garden, promising it would grow strong roots like the one shading Blizzard's rest. When breeze rustled its new leaves, I closed my eyes and almost felt his warm breath beside my knee again. Graduation loomed like a bright mountain, but fear never followed me up its slope, for Blizzard had already shown me how to climb. During finals week, I read my childhood essay aloud to anxious classmates, and their tension melted the way ice had under his playful paws. On the last day of term, a golden sunbeam slipped through the lecture hall window and touched the hero tag on my desk, shining like a quiet salute. I tucked the tag close to my heart, stepped into the wide future, and knew Blizzard would forever run beside me on every road of hope I chose to follow.